I always want to have more information than less. I guess it's perhaps a stylistic question. I want to note that my dear friend Senator William Alaska of the great city of Warwick, has joined us, and Senator Felag, I think, has some follow-up.
Yeah, I guess basically we're looking at a lot of different concerns. Obviously, there's the environmental concern, there's the natural gas supply and demand concern, and then foremost would be the safety and the security. But getting back to the environmental aspect that I was questioning on earlier regarding the turbidity of the dredging, you spoke about the water quality certification and that the denial with RIDEM was not that important or of importance.
Oh, I did, sorry, so let me be,
required.
if I misspoke, let me try and make it very clear. What I said was I hadn't seen the denial, so I wasn't aware what the grounds for the denial were.
Okay, but basically there's a lot of issues surrounding that turbidity issue, and I'll just mention a few of them and then you can comment on all of them or whatever ones you'd like to do. At one part, you talk about that the dredging would have to be a dredging window to minimize the effects of the winter flounder as far as the habitat is concerned. And you stated in your statement that the dredging would not have an effect on the winter flounder that overfishing does, but by the same token, you offer to offset the dredging by offering millions of dollars to fund mitigation measures. In other words, on one end, you're saying you're not the cause of it, but that you're offering millions of dollars to fund mitigation measures. Then also, there has to be some sort of model that exists that if you have 73 acres of winter flounder habitat, that your models must indicate that some portion of that area is going to be lost. Otherwise, you wouldn't be offering millions of dollars to fund these mitigation measures. And then also, you do not discuss who would monitor to ensure that we have acceptable levels of suspended sediment and that they are not violated. So maybe you can address those types of issues.
Well, some of those I can't really discuss because I'm not an expert in that area, but I'm happy to get back to you with written responses to those questions. As far as the 73 acres go, yes, we're going to deepen 73 acres, and so it would no longer have the potential to be winter flounder habitat. For spawning, yeah, where the flounder lay their eggs.
Right, and again, could you get back to us as to what that dredging window is going to be and what the models indicate the extent of the lost area and what sort of millions of dollars are you offering in these to fund these mitigation measures, and also what type of who's going to monitor these levels of suspended sediments to ensure that they're not violated?
I'll get back to you with the written response on the monitoring process, because there are monitoring, as I said, the monitoring protocols are under discussion with the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where the dredging will take place. As for the dredge windows, based on the fishery agency requirements, and the same dredge windows were applied to the Providence, and they may not be identical, but similar dredge windows were applied to the Providence Harbor River Channel project, run from August to the middle of January. And that period is a period at which the threat or risk to the fisheries from dredging are viewed as minimal, and that they don't really create a major risk. And so we can only dredge for a limited period of time. We do some dredging in the Taunton River. That's more environmentally sensitive because of different fish, and there the dredging windows are even tighter. I believe they run from early November to the middle of January. So there's only 2.5 months you're able to do any kind of in-water work in the Taunton River. Mount Hope Bay is less sensitive.
So again, I guess my question is referred to you must have models and what sort of effects you're going to have on the by dredging?
There are
And-
huge-
And
there are-
what sort of mitigation measures are you going to have in place to?
We will be happy to supply, that's extensively documented in the record. We're happy to send copies of all that material to the committee. I think that's the best way. Rather than me trying to remember off the top of my head all of these elements, let's send you a copy of all of these elements of the dredging program.
And have you ever heard of any tankers inducing any invasive species into the bay or other areas?
I
Because-
can't answer whether I've heard of any tankers ever doing it. I can tell you that that is an area where globally the marine industry has become a lot more sensitive, and there are a lot of protocols in place now that require the way that the ballast water on ships is handled is done in a fashion that prevents the introduction of invasive species from commercial ships that use ballast water. In our case, because the ships come in fully loaded, they're not carrying any ballast water. So they'll unload and they'll actually pick up water in the bay and then leave.
Okay.
So they don't bring in ballast water and discharge it.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Shearer, I do want to mention to you and perhaps give you a chance to respond. We are, I believe, most recent vintage, going to be having someone talk about the fault line in the bay and the potential because of the pipe methodology that has been adopted as a result of certain activity by the state of Massachusetts that you are now planning on utilizing, and the potential that might pose a threat. So I don't know if you're prepared to address that now, but I did want you to know that testimony, I think, is going to be elicited at our next gathering.
I think that's a great idea. If there's one individual I know who's been very strong on this point, Mr. Barosh, and I believe he has been given access to all of, well, he hasn't yet, he's got to sign a confidentiality agreement, but he's going to get access to all of the seismic and geological analysis. And the boring logs, sorry, it was one of my colleagues there. So he's got access. I will tell you that as a matter of policy in this country, it is a requirement that we measure the earthquake risk for LNG facilities. And what we look at as a design standard is to take what is seen as the worst earthquake, I believe it's in 10,000 years. And we have to design to withstand the worst earthquake that the region can suffer in a 10,000-year period, and that would be the Cape Ann earthquake that was in the late 18th century, which I think was close to a magnitude 7 earthquake.
Again, I don't believe the
6.
questions are directed towards the facility, but towards the methodology of the pipeline.
That's
coming
all.
through.
That's all encompassed within the same set of analysis.
And I will tell you that I did get something, I think, today that indicated that, and I don't believe it's your responsibility or fault, but when somebody says, well, I'm going to answer within certain security parameters, I'm going to tell you, that's just, it's a real red flag. It just makes me more apprehensive than just telling me I wouldn't answer you.
I'm not saying I'm not going to answer you. I'm saying there's certain elements of what this individual is looking for that are not in the public domain, and they're not for security. Some of them may be for security reasons, and that's simply because we're not going to show potential bad guys all the details of pipes. That's true of every energy facility in the country. We don't tell anybody the infinite detail in the public domain of how things are designed and operated. We can't. That's the world we live in today. But I'm happy to make that available to the committee under some form of protective thing so you can review it and read it. I'm serious. I mean, we just can't, it's not my, I don't make these rules.
I'm not scoffing at you, sir. I'm actually wondering how well we would do with any sort of security test. But, Mr. Shearer, I do want to thank you for coming forward. I want to thank the folks here attended. I know that there are some very strong emotions, and I appreciate the fact that you allowed the testimony to go forward without any interruption. And again, I appreciate your being here at your house in order to share in this hearing. I want to let the folks know that the next hearing is March 16th, 2 o'clock. I believe it will be here. And it is one that we are opening for the general public to make comment. I would ask that you, if you so desire, to make a comment at that time. You at least give us a heads up and call Kelly at 276, for security reasons, I'm not going to give her last name. Kelly at 276-5551. Just let her know that you're going to be in attendance. I want to thank all the